We're happy to have on the line with us this morning to talk about the end-of-life doula training, which is going to happen at Northern Dutchess Hospital on October 27th. Suzanne O'Brien. Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Great.
Good. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. Now, tell us, first of all, what this is all about before we talk about the training.
Okay. Sure. So what this is about is I am a registered nurse, but I have a history in mostly hospice and oncology, which is cancer. This is over a decade now, when I got into that field, I realized there's a huge disconnect, as we're probably well aware of, between end of life and how we're living our lives. We're not really preparing. We're not even talking about death. And unfortunately, it's an inevitable. So we know we're going to get there. So the biggest problem that I was finding is that most people, 9 out of 10 in all the statistics that I could find, want to be at home at the end of their lives, which is wonderful. I mean, of course, and I'm part of that, by the way.
Yeah.
But what happens is hospice care, which most people are familiar with that name, is really the organization that supports people at end of life. However, hospice manages the care of the loved one, meaning that the nurse comes in, does an assessment, they bring in medications, but the loved ones actually do the care. And that is really important to understand. So how can someone do the care if we haven't even talked about this thing called death, let alone gotten the skills for it? So I developed a program called End-of-Life Doula Training. Doula actually means it's a non-medical person who gives support physically, emotionally, and spiritually to someone else. We might have remembered it from birthing babies, which I often use that analogy of that person going out as preparing to come in. It's not as wonderful and beautiful, and of course we're losing somebody, but it needs that same love and preparation. So I kind of put a sweet little word on something that has been difficult for us to talk about as a society, and I have this training that my level 1, which I'm doing with Northern Dutchess Hospital, is a global outreach. I do this all over, and that one day will give you everything you need from the time that somebody might be diagnosed with a terminal illness till when their end of life comes.
Well, the thing that we think about, now you're taking care of your great-grandmother who's 150 years old, but this can happen at any time in anybody's life, and you don't know when you're going to wind up having to be the caregiver.
That's right, and I have 2 people recently have sent me emails who took the level 1 just because they thought it would be a great skill to have, which is true, didn't know they were going to use it, and boom, they both used it because 2 people got sick in their families. And Mark, that's a great point. The time to take this training is before anyone gets ill.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's almost impossible to teach people when they're actually in the midst of going through it. It really is, and there's a lot to it. So the time to take it is it's a life skill. I call this a human skill. So if you're called to come on do it, it's before someone gets sick,
but
and
Suzanne,
at any point. And you're right, it can strike us. I've had people as young as 5 years old, unfortunately, I've taken care of.
Suzanne, can anybody do this, though? I'm just afraid, I would cry. I don't, how do you learn? Can anybody do this? Can anyone learn to be the right person for end-of-life help?
They sure can. And it's like I say, it's a human skill. Now, I happen to be an RN and have a background in it, which sometimes people always will say, but you're a nurse. And I always say this is a human skill. Yes, I am, and I'm pulling from a lot of my bedside experiences, but I'm giving you, again, remember the concept of the family being the caregiver. So the hospice nurse is the one who teaches the family to do it, so the family's really the non-medical, and so anyone can do it. Now, if you have an overwhelming fear of death, which some people have fears of doctors, they just don't want to be, you're not the person that should be forcing themselves to go to this workshop. But I find that most people, the fear is really that unknown, like everything else.
Yes.
Once we get there, they cannot believe how uplifting and positive these workshops are. We're talking about a subject that's so difficult, and yet when we start popping the balloon, as I say, dispelling some of the fear and talking about it, it's empowering to have knowledge. They're like, wow, wait a minute, that's what was happening with Grandma, or now I understand, and that's not so scary because you're explaining what I was seeing. So actually, it's for everyone. It's level 1 trainings for everyone.
Well, and what what this is all about is it's not so much when that final moment happens, which I know that's part of it, but it's also all of those things that happen in the months before that that you have to take care of somebody.
Absolutely. This is really, really hopefully for months that we are working with people because, you know, you can only imagine I have this set up into 3 different phases of care, and it's really very, very well put together so that it's nice and clear. You can imagine at the beginning when someone's given that diagnosis, there's a whole set of emotions and things that go on there, which is usually like a shock type of presentation. And then, you know, they might even have pain or nausea or something, or exhaustion is usually there. And then we move into what I call a stabilization phase, which is where it's the beautiful phase where things are under control, but we could have these great conversations. And if there's things that are left undone or things that we want to say to one another, which we all have, that's the time to do it. And the doulas help facilitate this, and the family members know this now. So we utilize the time, and then, of course, there's that last phase, which I often connect to the laboring of that birthing of the baby again. It can be very quick and very stressful, and to have that knowledge and to have a doula there with you can make all the difference in the world. So, yes, come months before. Utilize it sooner rather than later, all the time.
And do you talk about the things that you should say after somebody dies? Because I always feel like I say the stupidest thing after somebody dies. You know, like do you ever discuss that? Like how to handle the stupid things people say to you, or what to say?
Well, I think you should be more concerned about the stupid things that you're going to say before they die, right?
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry.
You know, we're human beings, and we say things that I don't like. Stupid. We say things sometimes that we don't mean because we don't know what to say. And again, this always reverts back to that we haven't been given the skills with this thing called end of life at all. So yes, and I have so many people, I have to tell you, that say to me, I had a friend, they were terminally diagnosed, I didn't know what to say, so guess what? I just didn't go. I avoided them.
Yep.
And so what I always say is, yes, there are things to say. We give them that tools, and that level 1, we start out that way. And one of the biggest things that I want you to remember, that do you always have to say something? You don't. But you have to have that supportive presence. You should show up. That's very important. But one of the defaults that I always use is say, what can I do for you? How can I help you right now? Give them back a little in the beginning. Give them back a little bit of that power in that initial phase, because maybe somebody hasn't gone shopping for 2 weeks, or they haven't had sleep, or their house is a mess, or whatever it may be. And again, you can say something. Can you say it's going to be okay? We really can't, because we don't know that. But it's important to show up, and sometimes it's important to just be present with the person without even having to say too much. And another thing that's very helpful is to say that I'm here for you.
Oh, yes.
You know, these little they seem simple, but that's, again, what I've learned back in that trip to Africa where they basically had nothing, which I did some hospice work out there a few years ago. They taught me the simple effectiveness of just being present and the knowledge of what end of life looks like. Forget all the medicines and everything that we have that's so fabulous here, which is fantastic, but they got me back to those basics, and that's where I came up with that doula next to the bedside.
Well, and you pretty much cover most of the scenarios that people are going to encounter, so that they know what's coming, and it's kind of good to have the information that, like, I got this because I know this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think 90% of it is that, because if when they know that, and then they say to themselves, that stress level keeps at that low point where they can be present with their loved one. And yes, there are things that happen, and so I pull from everything I've experienced so that when it does pop up, they're like, okay, that is a natural part of the end-of-life process. I remember that, and so now I'm not scared, and I know what to do if I need to do something for comfort for that person based on what they're seeing. It's really, really empowering. This level 1 makes so much difference that I would say everyone please come out that wants to take it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad Northern Duchess is holding it for us up here in our community. It's pretty special.
Yes.
Well, I think it's obviously a very important part of everybody's life, and to have the information to be that person at the end is just fantastic.
Yep.
So let's tell everybody how they can get involved in this.
All right. So Northern Dutchess Hospital, which is in Rhinebeck on Route 9, is holding this event. It's on Tuesday, October 27th. That's going to be from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It has to RSVP. I have to tell you, I think they're like a third sold out, and they didn't even advertise yet. We just started.
Okay.
So please call 845-876-4745 and reserve your spot. They're asking for a $15 donation, but you can waive that if you don't have it for some reason. But again, it's Tuesday, October 27th in Rhinebeck at Northern Dutchess Hospital, and the number is 845-876-4745. Awesome. I also have an online classroom that can be accessed at any time from around the world. I have people, and that's for free or donation. So that website is SuzanneBO'Brien.com.
Okay, Suzanne, and you have an international best-selling book about this too. So I mean, she knows.
I do with that, and with that training, I put that level 1 training in there and sent it out into the world to see what would happen. And to my surprise, I mean, it just flew because people are so ready for this information, and that's really exciting. I think we're going to see a huge movement go forward in the different way that we handle end of life and support one another through that. And you know what? It's okay. It's a natural part of our journey. We want to do it well.
Absolutely.
Well, Suzanne,
wonderful.
Always great to talk to you. And once again, it is October 27th at Northern Dutchess Hospital. And Suzanne O'Brien, thank you so much for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you, guys. I hope to see you soon.